Hi everyone, this is Dawn. I'm so happy you could stop by today. As you know, if you've watched my other videos, I'm taking classes at the Altenew Academy to earn my teaching certificate, and I'm very excited to share with you what I've learned in my 4th class. This class was all about ink blending. I ink blended the background of the card to have a distressed look. I didn't ink the whole background. I left some white patches showing and made the yellow ink darker and lighter in some spots. So let's get started on this card. Today I will be using the Altenew Layered Lily Stamp and Die Set, the Altenew Garden Trellis Die, and the Altenew Handwritten Hello script. First I will make a die impression using the Garden Trellis die. I take a piece of white cardstock cut to 5.5 by 4.25. I line the die up on the paper. You can tape it onto the die if you want to, but I just laid it on top. Then using my Gemini Junior, I will place it face down on the Spellbinder embossing mat. Then I can run it through the die cutting machine. You can just follow your machine's instructions to emboss if you're not using a Gemini Junior. Then I will just trim a little bit off the border around all 4 sides of the embossed paper. This just gives it a more finished look around the edges. To ink blend my background, I will use the Picket Fence blending brush and the Altenew Sunray Yellow Ink. I start by rubbing my blending brush onto my Tim Holtz glass media mat. This way, when you start blending onto the paper, you don't get the harsh dark spots on your paper as much. I love the glass media mat because it just wipes up clean when you're done. Plus, you can pick up some of the ink that's on your mat and use that rather than keep taking from the ink pad. I continue to go around the outer edge of the paper, blending as I go. I'm concentrating on making the outer edge darker and the inner area more lighter, making certain spots darker than others as I go. I will be using my Misti stamping tool today to stamp the images. First, I put my most solid image down on a piece of 110-pound cardstock. Then I use my lightest color ink, which is going to be the Altenew Sunray Ink. I then stamp each image one time as I want the lighter color to show more on the petals. Then I bring in my second image. It lines up very easy on top of the solid image. I will be stamping the second image with the Altenew Chamomile Ink. I stamp the image once and then rotate the paper and stamp the second image once as well. Now I'm bringing in my final image. I will be stamping the center of the flower with the Altenew Marigold Ink. I need to stamp this image 3 times because I stamped the last layer 3 times, and I want the center of the flower to be much darker. So in order for it to stand out, I need to stamp it the same amount of times. Once the flower is done, I will then bring in the center of the flower. I'm going to stamp the center of the flower with the Altenew Obsidian black ink. I love this black ink. I feel like it stamps such a nice crisp image. I rotate the paper and stamp the next image. I only have to stamp this image once. Now I take the most solid image of the leaves. I'm going to stamp the solid image using the Altenew Olive Green ink. I'm going to be stamping 4 of the leaf images because I wanted to have 4 leaves on my card. Once I stamp the first two images, I then move the image over and I stamp 2 new images. I could have cut the paper into a square and then just rotated it 4 times, but I didn't think of it until after I did it, and I didn't want to waste the paper. I bring in the second image. It lines up very easy with the solid layer. I'm going to be stamping this image with the Altenew Moss Ink. I'm only going to stamp this image 1 time. I will continue to stamp until I finished with all the images. When I bring in my final image, I will use the Moss Ink again, but this time I'm going to stamp the image twice. This way it will look like I used a different color ink for the last layer, when in reality I used the same moss ink as the second layer. You can also stamp the last layer 3 times if you want to. This will make the last layer stand out even more, but I was going for a more subtle look, for my leaf, and that's why I only stamped it twice. Now that my stamping is done, I'm going to die cut all of my images. I'm just going to cut up all of my images and run them through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. I love my Gemini Junior, but I think for small images, the Sidekick machine is awesome. It's so quick and easy to just run them through. You don't have to wait for one small image to go through the big machine. Sometimes I do use purple tape so they don't move around when I'm die cutting, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Next, I will be using the Altenew Handwritten Script die. This is one of my favorite dies to use. I just love how delicate it looks, and I love how it comes with the shadow die. So I'm going to die cut 2 of the Hello shadow dies from the white cardstock. Then I will die cut 1 of the Hello script dies with some Gina Slate cardstock. I run them through my Gemini Junior really quick. Then I will glue the 2 white ones together using Gina Connect glue. This is my favorite glue to use when adhering intricate die cuts together because it allows you time to move around the die cut before it actually dries. After I adhere the 2 white die cuts together, I will then glue the slate gray Hello die cut on top. Okay, on to the stamp sentiment. Today I'm using the Altenew Many Thanks stamp set. I'll be using the Can't Thank You Enough stamp. I'm using the Misti stamping tool to stamp the sentiments. I actually learned this stamping trick from Jennifer McGuire, and I'm sure everybody knows who Jennifer is, but if not, I will have a link to her video below. I start with a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 4 1/4. I will position my L-shaped ruler that comes in the Misti Creative Corner set at 3 1/4 inch mark. Then I place my sentiment on top of the ruler. I close the Misti, and then I can now take away the ruler. I will stamp the sentiment using the Altenew Obsidian black ink. Once I stamp the sentiment, I will then move the paper up 1 block. Then I will stamp the next sentiment. I will continue to keep stamping the sentiment and moving my paper up 1 block until I have as many sentiments that I want. I decided to make quite a few of them so I can have them ready to go on for other cards. I always struggled to make sentiment strips even though I had dies that cut them out, but this way works fantastic and you can end up with a whole bunch of sentiments to use at a later time. Once I'm done with the stamping, I take out my Tim Holtz paper trimmer. This trimmer has the same 1/4 inch blocks on them as the Misti stamping tool. You just line the cardstock up against the trimmer and then move it up 1 block and then cut it. Then you continue to move the paper up 1 block until all of your sentiments are cut out. It's that simple, easy peasy, and when you're done, you have a whole bunch of sentiments to use on other cards. Now on to the fun part, I get to assemble the card. This is my favorite part of making cards, putting them together. I take a piece of craft foam and glue it to the back of the yellow blended panel. If you don't have craft foam, you can just cut 3 pieces of cardstock and glue that to the back of it. I like to use my art glitter glue when I have a lot of gluing to do. I just feel that it's very cost effective. Once I glue the craft foam to the panel, I will then glue the whole panel to the front of a piece of cardstock folded to 5.5 by 4 1/4 inches. Once that's done, I'm going to put foam tape on the back of all the flowers, leaves, and the sentiment strip. Again, if you don't have foam tape, you can actually use the dies to cut pieces of cardstock and glue them to the back of each flower and leaves, and it will have the same effect as the foam tape does. Once I lay everything out on the front of my card where I want them to go, I will then adhere them to the front of the card. We're almost done. I always like to add some sparkle to my cards. I love the Studio Katia dewdrops. They're one of my favorite gems to put on a card. I lay them out where I want them to go. Then using my jewel picker, I glue them to the card. That's my card for today. I hope you liked it. I'll be back soon with another video, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks and have a great day.